Gentlemen, please stand for the entrance of the family. Ladies and gentlemen, you may be seated.
We begin the service with a blessing, accepting God's judgment, despite how difficult and painful it is. And then the family members will tear the ribbon in mourning. Baruch atah Adonai Yad Ha'emet. Blessed are you, Lord our God, who rules the universe, who is the true judge. Begin by reciting Psalm number 1 from the book of Tehillim, Psalms. Ashri ha'isha shelo halach batzas r'shoim v'derech hatoyim liyamad v'meishav leitzim liyashuv kim b'seres adoni chefze b'seras ha'yega yem v'loyla v'ha'yekei shasal apal gemayim shepir yitim b'ite v'leil yibel v'chalash yasi yatzliach loichein ha'rishoim kim kamayis ha'shetet v'neruach al kein liyikam rishoim b'mishpat v'chatoyim b'das tzadikim ki oidei adinei derech tzadikim v'derech rishoim toivei. Happy is the one who has not followed in the counsel of the wicked, nor stood in the path of sinners, nor sat in the company of the scornful. Rather, that one's delight is in the Torah of the Lord, meditating in God's Torah day and night. And it will be like a tree planted by streams of water that yields its fruit in season, whose leaf will not wither, and whatever that one does prospers. Not so the wicked, who are like the chaff that the wind drives away. Therefore, the wicked shall not survive judgment, nor sinners in the assembly of the righteous. For the Lord loves the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked is doomed. Psalm 15, where King David describes the righteous person who will merit eternity in God's tent. A song of David, Lord, who may sojourn in your tent, who may dwell on your holy mountain. One who walks in purity, does what is righteous, and speaks the truth from the heart. Who has no slander on the tongue, nor has done harm to a fellow, nor cast disgrace toward a neighbor. In whose eyes a contemptible person is repulsive, but who honors those who are in awe of the Lord, who swears truthfully, even to personal hurt, and never retracts. One who does not lend money on interest, nor takes a bribe against the innocent. One who does these things shall never falter. And now Psalm 23. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai Roi, Lo Echsar, Minos Deshe Yarbitzeni, Al mei menuchot yinahaleni nafshi shovev yancheni b'magli tzedek leman shemo gam ki elech b'geit salmaves lo irara ki ata imadi shiftecha mishantecha heimo yenachamuni tarech lefanei shulchan neged seriroi dishanta v'shem roishi kaisi revoya achtoi v'chesed yudafuni kol yimei chayoi V'shavti beveis Adonai lo'irech yamim. And ask everyone to join me now in reading the English translation of that psalm, which is on the wall. Beloved family and friends, beloved husband Ken of 45 years, who just 2 weeks ago celebrated with Sherry their 45th wedding anniversary. Beloved children, Elizabeth, Alexandra, and Zachary. Beloved sister, Priscilla. Beloved grandchildren, Lily, Lucy, Beatrice, Joseph, Violet, Parker, and Piper. We've gathered here not because our beloved Sherry Endelson passed away, but because she lived a full life, 70 years of love, of goodness, of kindness, of righteousness, and of generosity. There's a beautiful poem called The Dash, and I would like to read it to you. It says, I read of a man who stood to speak at the funeral of a friend. He referred to the dates on the tombstone from the beginning to the end. He noted that first came the date of birth and spoke of the following date with tears, but said what mattered most of all was the dash between those years. For that dash represents all the time they spent alive on earth. And now only those who love them know what that little line is worth. For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we lived and loved and how we spent our dash. So think about this long and hard. Are there things you'd like to change? For you never know how much time is left that can still be rearranged. To be less quick to anger and show appreciation more and love the people in our lives like we've never loved before. If we treat each other with respect and more often wear a smile, remembering that this special dash might only last a little while. So when your eulogy is being read with your life's actions to rehash, would you be proud of the things they say about how you lived your dash? We're here today to talk about the dash in Sherry's life. And those in this room, which is overflowing with family and friends, know what that little dash is worth. All the goodness, all the love, all the kindness, all the generosity. And we will carry that dash with us forever. You know, Sherry began her career as an art teacher. And then when she married Ken, she actually became a model and a fashion to help him sell his homes, modeling his homes. And then she went on to become an interior decorator, designer, and a lover of art, a collector of art, and sat on the boards of many art museums and other centers of art like our own Kravis Center and the Guggenheim Museum. And I was thinking about an analogy of Sherry and art. You know, when a baby's born, there's not much to say about the baby. 7 pounds, 2 ounces. When a person leaves us, there's so much to be said. When a baby's born, they're given a blank canvas. And the way they lead their lives, the decisions, the choices, every day is another stroke with the paintbrush of life on this canvas. They begin to paint a beautiful portrait from their soul, reflected on the canvas. And then when they die, that portrait is framed with death. And this work of art hangs in the minds and the hearts of all those who knew her and loved her, her children, her grandchildren, her sister, her husband, her friends. And that beautiful portrait remains with us, the living, as an inspiration of how to live our lives. Sherry was a lover of art, but her greatest work of art was the portrait of her life. That was her greatest masterpiece. And that will always remain with us, with all of its beauty and all of its depth. This week, we're going to be celebrating the holiday of Passover. Passover is all about family, and it's all about memories, and it's all about transmitting memories. And that's what Sherry was all about. She lived for her family. She would drop anything and everything to be there for her family. And she created so many beautiful memories over the 74 years of her life that will live forever. I know it's hard to understand. We all question, why would God take such a beautiful person who is so vibrant, so vivacious, so full of love of life, who lived every day to the fullest? And we cannot understand God's ways. But Sherry and Ken had a dream to move to Palm Beach. And Sherry spent 3 years investing her love, her soul in designing the most beautiful home. And she only got to live in it just for a few months before she took ill. But I believe that this was Sherry's parting gift to her family. Everything she did was selfless. She did it for her family. And when you will come into the home and see her beauty portrayed in every work of art, her soul in everything she chose, her presence will always be felt each and every day. Sherry didn't wait for Passover to sit down to dinner with the family. Growing up, the family had dinner together each and every evening. And you will always be together and remember her and her love every day and every moment of every day. One of the messages of Passover is that God says, remember you were slaves in Egypt. You were downtrodden. And God redeemed you. And therefore, God says you have an obligation to help others who are vulnerable, who are downtrodden, who are the underdogs in life. And that was a message that Sherry lived with every day. Despite the blessings and the success of her life that she and Ken created over 45 years, she was always sensitive and caring to the plight of others. She devoted her life to philanthropy, to causes like the Promise Fund to help those suffering from cancer or those with cystic fibrosis, always remembering that as human beings and as Jews, we have an obligation to care for those who are less fortunate. But one thing about Sherry that really resonates with the holiday of Passover that is upon us. God tells us, remember that you were strangers in the land of Egypt, and therefore love the stranger in your midst. When I think about Sherry, I think about a person who not only loved the stranger, but turned every stranger into a friend. Sherry didn't see strangers. She only saw future potential friends. A couple of years ago, when Ken and Sherry decided to move to Palm Beach, even before their home was completed, Sherry came by the synagogue and said, I want to join the synagogue. I want my family to have not just a physical home in Palm Beach, but a spiritual home. And I remember walking into the office downstairs, the administrative office, and I see this lovely woman sitting, talking to the office administrator. And I came in, I said, "Hi, what's your name?" She said, "Oh, I'm Sherry Endelson." I said, "Nice to meet you." She said, "Well, we're building a home here in Palm Beach, and I wanted to join the synagogue." And right then and there, even before she filled out her membership forms, we had a 20-minute conversation and instantly turned me into a friend with her warmth, with her smile, with her graciousness, with her kindness. There was an immediate connection. Well, a few weeks ago, I was called to say goodbye to Sherry as her health was failing. And I came into the home, and here is the same woman who I had met just a few years ago, who was always full of life and vitality. And she was weak and she was frail, very low on energy and strength. But I was greeted with the same warmth, the same love, and the same smile like the first time I met her. She never lost that light from within. That no illness can take that away from her. And her daughter, Elizabeth, told me that as she was traveling back to Palm Beach, as the situation took a turn for the worse, she FaceTimed her mom. And with every ounce of strength, Sherry, who could not even speak, but was attempting with her smile, with her eyes, and with the movement of her lips to communicate love, even in the final hours of her life. In Judaism, we believe that death is a night between 2 days, between this world and the next world. The Kuzari, a 12th century Rabbi Judah Halevi, describes Judaism's belief in the afterlife with the following analogy. He says they were once twins in their mother's womb. One was an optimist and one was a pessimist. And they were having a debate for 9 months. And the debate was, what's going to happen to us when the time is over in 9 months from now? Where do we go from here? And the pessimist said to his brother, the optimist, well, I think after the 9 months, we're going to die. It's going to be over. This is all we got. Live to the fullest. Enjoy it while you have it. And the optimist said to his brother, I don't know. I have faith. I believe there's some other world waiting for us. God wouldn't be making all these miracles and sustaining us just to come to an abrupt end after 9 months. That doesn't make any sense to me. I'm sure there's another world waiting for us. And the pessimist says, do you have any evidence, any proof that this world you imagine exists? I think you're just afraid of the inevitable that you're going to die. So you're imagining some world waiting for you. But you should face reality. This is all we got. The day of the delivery comes and they start experiencing contractions. And suddenly the womb opens and they see this bright white light that they've heard about. And suddenly the brother, who is the optimist, starts to leave the birth canal first. And his brother, who's the pessimist, is crying. And he starts kissing his brother goodbye and saying, it was nice knowing you, but this is the end of the road. This is where we die. And his brother, the optimist, leaves the birth canal. And now for the first time, he's all alone in the womb. And he's listening for some clue as to the whereabouts of his brother. And suddenly he hears something he had never heard before in his entire lifespan of 9 months. He hears the shrilling, shrieking cry of his twin brother from the other side of the womb as his brother takes his first gasp of breath. And the Kuzari, Rabbi Judah Halevi's 12th century scholar, says the brother in the womb, who was the pessimist, thinks to himself, you see, I was right. They must have just killed him. And he's screaming from pain and agony. He had so much faith and belief in this world that's awaiting him, but obviously he was naive. And the Kuzari says, little does the brother, the pessimist in the womb, understand that what he just described as death is actually birth and life. And that on the other side of the womb, there's a mother and father embracing their child with tears of joy streaming down their cheeks and saying, welcome to our world. And the Kuzari says the same is true as we experience death in this world. What we call death in this world is birth and life in the next world. And as we sit here grieving and crying, as we should, in the next world, Sherry's beloved parents, her beloved ancestors, her beloved mother-in-law, Diana Belfer, her beloved son-in-law, Judson, who she loves so much, are waiting with open arms to greet her with tears of joy. Sherry was a big traveler. As a matter of fact, this summer, she was in Europe multiple times with Ken and actually took Elizabeth to the US Open. They were always traveling. As someone said, Sherry, you just said, do you want to go? She said, sure, where? She was up to going and doing and traveling all the time. But in Jewish tradition, when someone goes on a journey, we wish them two words, lech lishalom, may you go to peace. But today, when Sherry goes to her final journey to the world to come, the tradition is we change one letter. And instead of saying lech lishalom, may you go to peace, we say lech bishalom, may you go in peace. And our rabbis explain in this world, we're all journeying to peace, towards peace. Everyone wants to find tranquility, peace, fulfillment, happiness. But it often eludes us in this world because nothing's perfect in this world. And so we're always journeying towards the peace. But when one goes on their final journey to the next world, we can finally say, Lech bishalom, may you go in peace. Because the world that Sherry is going to and that everyone goes to in their final journey is a world of complete peace and tranquility. Over the last few months, Sherry was journeying towards peace, trying to find health, difficult, painful months. But at this point, she is finally bishalom, going in peace. And her very name is Shendel. The word Shendel means beautiful. Her beauty from without and from within will always remain here on earth, making all of our lives and the world around us a beautiful place because of her presence that graced this earth for 74 years. Just conclude with a story they tell about a woman who was on her deathbed, and her entire family was surrounding her bed. And she turned to her family and she said, I have one last request before I die. They said, sure, Mom, anything. And she said, you see that bundle of twigs underneath the fireplace? And they said, yes. They said, please bring it to me. They rushed to bring the bundle of twigs to their elderly, ill mother, and they handed it to her. And she handed it to her husband and said, I want you to break this bundle of twigs. Her husband didn't understand why, but he attempted, but could not break the bundle of twigs. At that point, he said, give it to the children. And each child tried to break the bundle of twigs and nobody could break it. So give it to the grandchildren. Nobody could break it. At that point, the dying woman said, give it to me and I'll break it. And they looked at her and they said, we couldn't break it. How are you going to break it? But that's what she wants. They handled her the bundle of twigs. And she proceeded to untie the knot of the string around the bundle of twigs and began to break each twig one at a time. And she said, my final message to all of you is we have always been a family that was close-knit and tied together. We stood together, we loved each other, we supported each other. And that was our strength, that was our resilience. I know that I may be leaving, but I will be watching over you and you will always remain closely knit and tied to each other. I have watched Ken, Elizabeth, Alexandra, Zachary, and the grandchildren rally to Sherry's side over the past few months, and especially in the last weeks, when they dropped everything and relocated to be at her side morning, afternoon, and evening, to share every meal, to give her as much love. You have a beautiful family and an extended family of friends You will always stand together, comfort each other, strengthen each other. And that will be your strength. That will be your comfort, together with all the beautiful memories that your beloved wife, mother, grandmother, and sister created here that will live on for eternity. Now I'd like to call upon Sherry's eldest daughter, Elizabeth, to speak about her beloved mom.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the celebration of my amazing mother, Sherry. I'm Elizabeth, her oldest daughter, and I'm here with my siblings, Alexandra and Zachary, and my father, Ken. Let me tell you, my mom was a force of nature. Sherry was always on the go, fueled by her limitless energy. Her determination and dedication allowed her to accomplish more in a single day than most people do in a week, which is why she was always late for everything. Sorry, Mom, but you know it's true. From her early days growing up in Massapequa to her successful career as an interior designer and philanthropist, Mom lived life to the fullest and made an indelible mark on everyone she met. Mom was a social butterfly who knew everyone, and let's be honest, everyone knew her too. If you left her alone for even a moment, she would come back with at least 2 new best friends. I'm pretty sure she had the secret power of attracting people with her charm, wit, and her fear of absolutely nothing. Speaking of charm, our parents' love story was straight out of a romantic novel. After dating for less than a year, Mom and Dad eloped, hoping for a low-key ceremony. Of course, they bumped into the rabbi's wife at the 85th Street subway station. Only in New York, right? To celebrate, they splurged on a taxi home, stopping for cookies from Greenberg's, smoked salmon from Eli's, and pizza from Ray's. Our mom knew how to do romance right. Mom was a devoted wife. She always supported Dad, even if it meant posing in a swimsuit for his first full-page ad he ever ran for his first residential development. Times have certainly changed, but Mom's unwavering love and support for our dad has remained constant. Mom was always willing to go above and beyond to support Dad in anything and everything he did. Mom's love for Dad and Dad's love for Mom was an inspiration to all who knew them. In addition to Mom's love of food and socializing, Mom was also a sports enthusiast and athlete. She golfed at least twice a weekend, exercised daily, hiked through the most challenging trails, and played tennis 4 or 5 days a week, even when pregnant with me and my siblings. I mean, who needs to go to the hospital when you're winning a tennis game, right? But the most important thing about Mom was that she loved us and supported us unconditionally. She was our rock, our person, through the good and the bad. She was always there for us, from our earliest years through adulthood. We were her first phone call in the morning and the last one at night. And we loved hearing all about her million activities each day. I'm pretty sure she never slept. Of course, Mom is not only a wonderful mother, but also a loving grandmother to her 7 grandchildren: Lily, Lucy, Violet, Parker, Beatrice, Joey, and Piper. The proudest grandmother, I'm pretty sure she's shared pictures with most of you. She loves spending time with them and always made sure to have arts and crafts supplies and golf and tennis equipment ready whenever they visited. She would often challenge them to a game of golf or a tennis match, or teach them how to make beautiful handcrafted cards, recalling her days as an art teacher in Milwaukee. Bet you didn't know that. This fall, my mom and dad even took my son Joey trick-or-treating in full costume, only stopping when Joey told Nana that he had enough candy and was ready to go home. These special moments were the best. Mom was always going above and beyond for her grandchildren. She was an inspiration to all of her grandchildren, and they will cherish her memory forever. Today, we celebrate Sherry's life and the wonderful memories we have of her. As we remember them, may we also be reminded of the joy, love, and laughter that Mom brought into all of our lives. May we be inspired to live our lives in the same full and meaningful way. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth, for those beautiful words and memories. I'd now like to call upon Sherry's sister, Priscilla Sager, to say a few words about her beloved sister.
Hi, thank you. My name is Priscilla Sager, for those who don't know me. I'm Sherry's sister. I'm sure you all know how hard this is for all of us. Sherry was very special. Her loss at such an early age is shattering. For those who knew her well, and you loved her, she was the matriarch of our family. We all looked at her for advice. She had a kindness and a sweetness about her that drew people to her. She was the major part of my life, that the emptiness of losing her I may never overcome. In her everyday life, she was one of the most active and involved people I ever knew, going from one activity to the next, then focused on running a successful interior design business. She never finished my house. Damn it. She kept on saying, "Don't worry, I'll get to it." And I said, okay. She loved her charities. I remember when she was at St. Mary's, she said in the early part of her illness, she was scheming on ways of getting Jack Nicklaus and Tiger Woods to be involved in her favorite charity, the Promise Fund, which she loved dearly. You can't know, you have to let me indulge for a few moments about some of the funny stories about our youth, because I know her a lot longer than everyone else. When she was a kid, around 5 years old, she told our mother that she wanted to have a sister so she could have pillow fights. She said, "I want a sister so that I can have pillow fights, that the child that wouldn't go home at night." So my parents had to explain to her that if she had a child, there was a 50% chance that there might be a boy. So my sister thought about this for a second, and she said, "Don't worry, Mom. If it's a boy, we won't tell anyone." She said, "We'll just let his hair grow out and we'll put dresses on him and we won't tell anybody." So you can imagine my parents' relief that I was a girl. And I remember when I grew up, we only had one pillow fight. And that's when we had pillows with feathers. So I remember the room was full of feathers. And so that was one story I remember. And you have to remember my sister did have a teeny little habit of being late. And it was genetic because the reality was she was actually 3 weeks late when she was born. So my mother's due date was 3 weeks sometime in May. She was supposed to be born in May. She was 3 weeks late. So it was very late. And it was warm in May. So she was always late. Elizabeth, you can't help it. It's genetic. My mother wasn't very happy about that. She also had a habit when she was dating in high school. So she, the boys would come and they would wait downstairs and I would have to amuse them. So she had one boyfriend, Bob, who said, listen, if you can get her ready on time, I'll pay you $3. Now to a 10-year-old, $3 at that time was a lot of money. So I would say to Sherry, Bob called and he's coming at 5:30. And she would say, okay, I'll be ready. So she would have different outfit changes and put her makeup and, hairdos and changes. So by the time he was there at 6:30, which was an hour later, she was ready. So I would get the $3 and I was rich. So when she broke up with him, I was a little bit upset because it was I wasn't going to get the $3 anymore, but she was ready. So I was happy. So there was a third story I'll tell you about my sister. So you all heard that she was a big tennis enthusiast. And I remember this time that in the 70s, she was just beginning to play tennis and she really took it as a passion. And she was actually ranked, remember this, Ken, in the top 100 amateurs. And she was playing a match and it was a really long match. And I think you were supposed to go to dinner with your parents. And went to the 5th set and it was late. And I think you were getting looking at the clock and saying, we're going to be late. And it went to the 5th set. And I looked at her and I said, you can't give up now. You can't give up now. And she went to the 5th set. She ended up winning. And I said, Sherry, you gotta win. So she left with the trophy and we were late. And I know she got yelled at for being late. And I said, don't give up. So she left with the trophy. We got yelled at for being late. But I liked Sherry for that because she left. She showed the determination about being a real sports. She was going to be a winner. So I think the thing that I loved about my sister most was that she had grit. She was a winner. She had grace under pressure. She was a fighter. She was my best friend. I'm going to miss her every day. I'm going to miss our 5 calls a day that we had. And her last text to me was, I love you. And I texted her back, I love you more. So, thank you.
Thank you, Priscilla, for those beautiful, heartfelt words. Sherry has so many friends that's evident in this room, but just call upon one friend, very dear friend, speak on behalf of all of her friends, Lori Silvers.
So for those of you that don't know me, I am Lori Silvers, and there's so many things that have been said prior to this. I just want to share a few things that my memories of Sherry will include. We were friends for a very long time. We met when we were very young mothers. I think I had my son and she had Elizabeth, but we hadn't finished building out the packages yet. But we had over 40 years approximately of friendship as young mothers and growing into very proud grandmothers, and always saying to each other during that process, well, I will never be one of those grandmothers that shares pictures and tells stories. And of course, what do you think we did? And that's what we love doing. And together we celebrated birthdays, anniversaries, and we consoled each other during losses. It was a friendship built on love and respect, and honoring the same values and traditions. Some of the things that we did together Sherry and I both loved bridge, and I hosted a bridge dinner and lessons in my home a couple of times every month. And Sherry, of course, would always come a few minutes late. But it was okay because we would be, talking and relaxing. She would come in, who said a force of nature. And it was like somebody had opened up a window and the sunshine came in. And just start talking about things and what she had done and where she had been. And it was exciting. It was happy. It brought pleasure to everybody. It was just, that was Sherry. So the bridge, she insisted that I learn to play canasta, and I promise you I will eventually pick up the pack, but I'm not brave enough to do that just yet. Golf until she gave up on me, and of course the charities that we've talked about. But Sherry didn't want to be involved in a charity unless it was meaningful to her. The Promise Fund, which saves lives of women suffering from cervical and breast cancer, and the Kravis Center, because it's all about bringing enrichment and the arts to our community. That was important to her. And of course, the Jewish charities, the most important of all. She was creative. I didn't know that she had been an art teacher. Interesting. You think you know somebody. But it's not surprising. She saw beauty in every single detail. And I remember one time looking at some pictures on her phone, and I went a little bit too far and I said, Sherry, what is this? And she said, "Oh, those are lamps." And they were very unusual looking lamps, but she saw beauty in architecture, people. It was really about her love of people. And everybody in this room probably feels that they're her best friend. So I speak on behalf of all of you because that's the way she made everybody feel. Sherry loved to read. She was always telling me I had to read this book or that book. And they weren't just beach reads. They were pretty heavy duty books about World War II, about the persecution of Jews, historical novels, really deep books that, you really have to get into, because she took life very seriously. It was the fun part of life, but also the serious learning part of life. What Sherry taught me was a wonderful lesson, and I hope that everybody in this room can take this away as well. The importance of being inclusive. Sherry's attitude was, we will always find room at the table. And if the table's not big enough, we'll just bring over another table. She never wanted anybody to feel that they weren't included. Everybody was a friend. Everybody had her respect and her friendship. That's pretty special. I learned that from her, and I'm going to remember that always. And I hope you remember that too. She also taught me something that I'm still working on. She taught me it's okay to be good to yourself. It's okay. That's kind of a hard lesson for me. I'm still working on it, Sherry, and I promise I'm not going to give it up. It's a good lesson. She also said one thing that also will live on in my life. Surround yourself with positive people. Don't deal with the negativity. Let that go away. Be around positivity that will enrich your life, that will make you a better person. And so her legacy to me, her family, and the community. Don't stress the small stuff because it doesn't really matter. Love everybody that's important to you and tell them that you love them. Enjoy life and be a wonderful friend. And Sherry, your memory, your life has enriched me and everybody in this room and so far beyond, more than we can ever know.
Thank you, Lori, for those beautiful words. And finally, I'd like to call upon family friend and rabbi from Boca Raton, Rabbi Dan Levin from Temple Beth.
Marc Chagall said, in our life, there is a single color, as on an artist's palette, which provides the meaning of life and art. And it is the color of love. When you walk into our new Welcome Center at Temple Bethel, the first thing that you see on a gray wall are 3 tapestries exploding with color that are all about love. They are called the Endelson family tapestries of love. The middle one has the Hebrew phrase, Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. It features 2 trees of different colors and species growing together, their branches intertwined. And from those intertwined branches are leaves that are every color of the rainbow. It is that love of the other that spawns all of the multiplicity of life. The love that I know she shared with you, Ken, and you shared for her along your glorious journey together. The love I know that she shared for each of you, her children and her grandchildren. Sherry and I used to joke that if she knew how great grandchildren would be, she would have had them first. And then next to that tapestry on the left is a tapestry that features the phrase, Ve'ahavta et hager, you shall love the stranger. And featured in that tapestry is a picture of Abraham's tent, a tent that he and Sarah built that was open on all sides to always look out for the stranger, the person that needed somewhere to belong, the person who needed to be included. Some people collect coins and other people collect stamps, and Sherry collected people. And she always unfailingly welcomed them into your tent and made them feel at home. And when you look at that tapestry, leading away from that tent is a single path that leads up toward the light of the Holy One. Because when we join hands together with others and walk that path together, that is how we find our way to God. And the third of those tapestries on the right side uses the familiar phrase, Ve'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha, that you shall love Adonai your God. It is a yellow brick road that is in and of itself a Torah scroll that leads towards that same light of God's presence. How is it that we express our love for God but by walking that righteous path? A path that is, like the others before it, woven with love. A tapestry is amazing because it weaves together all of these different colored threads to tell a story. And all of us who are here have been blessed to be part of that story. When I think of Sherry, I think about those remarkable moments that we shared together, not just every year on Kol Nidre when you would join me on the Bima for the celebration of the New Year and Yom Kippur, but the celebration of your weddings and special occasions that we had together. When I had the honor and privilege of standing underneath the chuppah with each of you, I shared some words from Eric Fromm, who wrote, "What does one person give to another? We give of ourselves, of the most precious we have. We give of our life. We give that which is alive in us. We give of our joy, of our interest, of our understanding, and our knowledge, of our humor and our sadness, of all that makes us alive and holy. And thus, giving of our lives, we enrich the other person. We do not give merely in order to receive, for giving is in itself exquisite joy. But in giving, we cannot help bringing something to life in those we love, and this which is brought to life reflects back to us." Sherry loved giving. It gave her such intense joy to know that she was making a difference in the lives of others, those who were the most vulnerable, those who could be touched by art and music and theater, or new ideas that might be spawned by the greatest university in the state of Israel, and the other causes that were so dear to her. In thus giving of her life, she has enriched all of us. She did not give to receive, because it was in the giving that she found such exquisite joy. And thus in giving, she helped bring something to life in each of us. And this which she brought to life reflects back to her. I wish she could look out at this sea of family and friends who are reflecting so individually and collectively the light and the love that she implanted within each of us. How blessed were we to be given the gift, the precious, holy, and sacred gift of walking her path with her, a path that which was so painfully and tragically truncated. And so each of us has been bequeathed by her a task to live for her, to carry forward the light of her presence that can shine in our eyes, that will illuminate a darkened path on which we walk before us. Chagall said, in art, as in life, everything is possible if it is based on love. And so it is our collective prayer that our love for you will somehow steady you as you walk through yet another unspeakable tragedy, and that the darkness that has fallen on your family and on us all will somehow find some measure of light from all of the love of Sherry that we reflect to you. We pray that her life will continue to be celebrated by all of us, and that her memory will forever be for a blessing. And we say amen.
Thank you, Rabbi Dan Levin, for your beautiful words. Just want to conclude by saying I'm looking around in this room at this community which embraced and loved Sherry so much, and there's a void and an absence that we all feel in our hearts. And I'm reminded of the story of this beloved woman who was moving away from a community, and the entire community came out to say goodbye. It was in the olden days. She had all her belongings in her wagon, and she was about to get onto the wagon and leave, when someone came running out and said, "Wait, you left something behind." And she said, "Really?" And she went up to her home to look in every room to see what she possibly left behind. When she came out, she said, "I don't see anything. What have I left behind?" And he looked at her and said, "You may be leaving, but your good name will always remain here with us. We're bereft of her presence, but her good name will always live on." Our rabbis say in Pirkei Avot, in Ethics of Our Fathers, there are many crowns that a person could aspire to wear during their lifetime. There's the crown of wisdom and knowledge, the crown of power and success, the crown of leadership. But our rabbis say, Keter Shem Tov, the crown of a good name, surpasses all the other crowns. That's the crown that Sherry wore every day of her life, loved, respected, admired by everyone. And her good name will live on here in our community. And in this crown that she wore, she had precious gems, diamonds. Her husband, Ken, her children, Elizabeth, Alex, Zachary, her 7 grandchildren. And she will always look down and see her gems, her jewels, her diamonds sparkling as she channels her light and her love to you. Death ends a life, but it doesn't end the relationship. Your relationship of love will go on. And I will just tell you, I once had a member of our synagogue who said to me, "I have to make a big decision. I need to discuss it with my mother." And I said, "Your mother? I know your mother passed away a number of years ago. I was at the funeral." And he said, "Rabbi, I was so close to my mother that I can talk to her every day, and I could hear her talking to me, and I know what she's telling me. Ken, Elizabeth, Alex, Zach, and all the grandchildren, your love and your relationship will go on forever. She will continue to smile down from heaven as she always did, radiating her warmth and her love." We're going to conclude the service now. I'm going to ask everyone to please rise. Conclude with the Eshet Chayil prayer that we say every Friday night at the Shabbat table. Eshet Chayil miyimsai, woman of valor who can find, far beyond pearls is her worth. Her husband's heartfelt trust is in her, and he shall lack for nothing. She bestows good upon him and never harm all the days of her life. She seeks out wool and linen, and her hands work willingly. She oversees the ways of her household and partakes not of the bread of laziness. Her children arise and praise her husband, and he lauds her. Many daughters have accomplished well, but you surpass them all. Grace is false and beauty is vain. A woman who is in awe of God, she shall be praised. Give her the fruits of her own hand, and let her deeds praise her in the gathering places. Adonai Nasan, the Lord has given, v'Adonai lakach, and the Lord has taken. Yehi Shem Adonai mivarach, me'ata ve'ad olam. We're now going to escort Sherry to her final resting place. Following the interment, family invites everyone for Shiva, which will begin today at the Palm Beach Country Club. And I just want to point out something unique, and that is that in Jewish law, when a holiday comes like Passover, it interrupts the 7 days of mourning and the 30 days of mourning. And that's because it's a communal celebration. And the message is that individuals die, but their love is in the community. And as the community lives on and the family lives on, they live on in the community. Sherry will be at all of our Passover Seders. We'll remember her, and we'll tell our children the story of this wonderful, beautiful woman. Please join as we escort.
Ladies and gentlemen, if I can have everyone in the lobby step outside, please. And everyone in the chapel, please stay in position until the casket and the family has a chance to walk by. We're making our way out to the rear part of the cemetery. If you feel like you need extra assistance, by all means, take your car. But traditionally, we'll be walking behind the hearse. Thank you.
Cheryl,